to the third video in this series from Community Energy Wales. In this video we're going to be looking at something called the 4 C's. So this builds on the whole house approach that we talked about briefly in the last video. So the 4 C's were first coined as a concept by my dear friend, in fact, Neil May, when he wrote a white paper for the British Standards Institute on moisture. So which might seem a bit strange to think, why am I talking about moisture when we should be talking about energy efficiency? Well, hopefully now, from what we've talked about in the last video and the whole house approach, you start to realise that actually everything is joined up together. So what we do with moisture has an impact on energy efficiency and vice versa. But there are also lots of other considerations that the whole house approach touches on. Lots of social issues as well. But for this video, we're going to focus very much on these 4 C's. The first of which is context. So context looks at a whole range of issues, and it's really important to make sure we really understand the context of your particular building, your home. Context is the biggest of the C's. It covers so much. It covers, the physical location of the building. Is it up a mountain? Is it next to a river? Is it exposed to lots of wind-driven rain, etc.? It covers the regulatory. Is it listed? Is it in a conservation area? Are there going to be any plans for developments nearby? It's also linked to the context of the actual owners. Is it leasehold? Is it freehold? What's the budget of the people who are living in there? Are there any other considerations like accessibility that need to be dealt with? But it's also the actual building itself. How has it been maintained? What sort of shape is it? Because that makes a difference. How do the services within the building work? Is it well ventilated, heated? How do those things interact? So understanding the context is really vital as a first step so that we can get our heads around all the external and internal and social and economic factors that affect the decision-making processes that we're about to undertake. Coherence is the second C, and this is probably the second biggest category. And it's really important because what we're trying to do here is to make sure that the decisions and the specifications are coherent. They work together. So we need to think about things like thermal improvements. Do all the thermal improvements work together? Making sure that we don't create cold spots, thermal bridges. Do the materials work together? Certainly that's been a major mistake of the past, certainly with traditional buildings, where traditional buildings that use certain materials that are regarded as being moisture open have been covered with materials that are regarded as being moisture closed. And that's a key consideration because that's where lots of the unintended consequences of retrofit works are based. That's where their root is not being coherent. We also have to look at coherence with things like heating, ventilation, fabric. Is the new heating system, for example, going to be suitable for the building fabric? Are we going to be able to manage air tightness with good ventilation so we have a good internal air quality? Are we going to be able to make sure that the building itself is weather tight but also maintain all the factors that are required for it to breathe if it's an old building? Coherence is really important because it means everything gets locked together and everything works together and in partnership and in harmony. And if we don't have that bringing together of factors, bringing together of thoughts, bringing together of materials, of systems, then it will fail. And this is the thing we're trying to avoid. The third C is capacity. This is a bit more ethereal, really, but the idea is sound. Is our solution capable of coping with all the things we think are going to happen with the climate? So if the predictions are that we're going to get, warmer, wetter, bigger storms, etc., then we have to make sure certain things are, are locked in. Because if we're going to have more rainfall and heavier rainfall, then we need to make sure that the gutter sizes are bigger. We need to make sure that the gutters are attached securely. So maybe, using things like plastic guttering should be a thing of the past. We should be looking at more solid metal guttering. Little simple things that make, a huge difference. So we need to start thinking about how are our buildings going to cope with a changing world. The last C is caution. And this is really raising the issue of maintenance. We're going to make a whole load of changes for these buildings. But if something goes wrong or something needs fixing, how easy is it to do that? Can we access, certain elements that might fail over time? If you're making a big retrofit project of your home, you would want to make sure that the whole of the building and the whole of the work is going to have a reasonable lifespan. 50 years, 100 years. However, there might be elements of it that only have a lifespan of, say, 10 years. So if you need to replace those things, then how easy is it to do that? Can we make our lives easier in the future by taking a cautionary approach and making sure that we can access those things? So in summary, the use of the 4 C's as an approach is a really important one, because if we get that right, if we understand, the context of a building, making sure that everything we do is coherent, that we're taking a sort of a cautionary approach, but we're also building in the capacity for change, then if we're able to do all those things, then our retrofit is much more likely to be successful in the long run.